And welcome into the Mizzou postgame show right here on STL Sports Central. My name is Chris Pelican, joined by Matthew Rocchio as the Tigers, in their third SEC game of the season, lose for the first time 76-69, your final score down in Oxford, Mississippi. Rock, a tough game for the Tigers. You know, one that I think showed a lot of the things that people, fans in particular, have been pretty worried about with this group in terms of inconsistency on defense, maybe lacking a killer instinct in a lot of ways. And we saw all those things sort of rear their head today. Tigers fall to 12-4 in the year, 2-1 in the SEC. And I'll get your thoughts on just sort of what you saw today down in Oxford.
I mean, I don't know if we can really talk about anything more than just another terrible game from the charity stripe. I mean, it obviously, you know, other than I believe the opening game against Howard, I don't think it had ever gotten. So they finished 50%. So I think
24. Yep.
Yeah. So Howard, it was below 50%. I don't think there's been another one at or below 50% this season. No, the next closest one was the 11 for 21 at Kansas. So I mean, you obviously had the gap versus Howard. That was fine, but to have that pathetic performance at the charity stripe in a game that would have been completely in hand and would have been handled completely differently. I mean, it's an 8-point loss on the board, not like what it actually was. And so, I mean, you hit, you know, a reasonable amount of your free throws, even for this team that isn't very good. You hit 75% of your free throws. You hit 70% of your free throws. That's another 6 points or so, and it's a completely different game. And not to mention, you know, potentially wasting points with dumb fouls and things like that. It's a purely wasted game by the Tigers, and that just feels like it's a magnified waste after the little 2-game run you go on, where everything feels different after the Illinois debacle, and you get 2 big wins in conference play. And then you let one that should have been, you know, handled just slip completely through your fingers.
I had a friend text me after the Kentucky game, and he said, "Are you believing in this group yet?" My response was absolutely not. And again, you can't show what they saw or you can't see or show what they did against Kansas and against Illinois and have a bunch of believers, right? At this point, you're just blind. And, you know, again, it is obvious this team has talent. There's no two ways about it. I will say one thing that was encouraging for me was the fact that I saw down the stretch in clutch moments, Dennis Gates had the 6 guys playing that should be playing 90+% of the minutes. So to his credit, it seems like what I've complained about all year is that Dennis Gates thinks it's fun to play 11 or 12 guys. And I know at some point in time that might be helpful. The problem is that you get these guys in for these 4 or 5 minute runs and they don't know what they're doing. They, you know, I mean, if you want to look and see maybe where this game turned, look in the first half. They start out on a 22-12 run to open the game. And then all of a sudden, Anthony Robinson goes out of the game and T.O. Barrett comes in and Nicholas Randall comes in. And the next thing you know, they are trailing in this game. And it's one of these deals that I can, maybe in the old world, Rock, I can understand this concept of developing players over the course of 4 years. But I mean, in the world we live in with college sports at this point in time, I mean, you need to think about what's happening today. That's about it, because you know what? Your roster is going to look vastly different next year. So this idea of getting freshman minutes, it's silly, because you know what? He tried that last year with this very vaunted recruiting class, and almost all of them have transferred since. So the point is like, it is obvious at this point in time that if your name is not Anthony Robinson, Jaden Stone, Mark Mitchell, Sean Phillips, Trent Pierce, or Jacob Cruz, you should be sub 5 minutes playing with this team. So again, at least they had that group down the stretch.
Yeah.
The bad news is that group didn't have good offensive possessions, shot terrible free throws, didn't defend in important moments. So again, I mean, like, you know, I don't know if we take any victory out of playing the rotation that I think they should be playing down the stretch, because those guys just didn't get it done today.
Well, it's 3 straight games where he's done that. You know, it's 3 straight games with like a minute or two from like Trent Burns, and I guess he had 6 versus Florida, but like it's not. I mean, I think he's kind of figured out. The only time, I mean, it's those are the only 6 players getting more double-digit minutes. So I can roll with it. If you get in foul trouble and things like that, like they did against Florida for a minute, you know, you might have to bring in some other people to spell Phillips and things like that. So that's going to happen. I'm not harping on that. I liked the minutes distribution since they hit conference play. For me, what I'm going to focus on from this game was you had incredible games efficiency wise from Jaden Stone, Mark Mitchell, and Sean Phillips. And while there were moments where you forced the ball into Sean Phillips that eventually disappeared because he couldn't hit a free throw, and eventually Ole Miss was going to take advantage of that, the fact of the matter is Jaden Stone didn't take a shot after the 15-27 mark in the game, and he was 4 for 6 from the field, 5 from 7 from the charity stripe, 3 of 5. He's been stroking it from deep lately. How did the ball never find Jaden Stone in an opportune moment to get a shot off in the final 15 minutes of the game? Same thing with Mark Mitchell. He finishes with 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. And he has 9 shots on the game. He goes 7 of 9. I know he was dishing it out. That's how he gets all the assists. But how does Mark Mitchell only go 3 for 4 from the floor in the second half in that kind of game when it's back and forth, possession by possession? How are you not manufacturing offense for the three-headed monster you have? Because look across the court. Look what Ole Miss is doing. They're putting the ball in A.J. Store's hands for 26 points, 16 shots from the field. They're putting the ball in Malik Diaz's hands, 17 shots from the field, 21 points. The efficiency isn't anywhere near close to what Mizzou's three-headed monster did. But what did you do? You lost to the two-headed duo of Ole Miss because they put the ball in their playmakers' hands, and Mizzou, for some reason, didn't.
He is Matthew Rocchio. I'm Chris Pelican. This is the Mizzou Central postgame show right here on STL Sports Central. And folks, as always, we invite you to jump in to the YouTube chat and let us know your thoughts on what happened today in Oxford. Our friend Jeremy Hodge already jumping in there, and obviously the free throw is the big issue. No two ways about that. I mean, and you know, we can't dispute that fact. But again, you know, the overall, you know, Rock, I think that I guess it's maybe just an overall arching theme, and that if you're a Mizzou guy and you've watched Dennis Gates for 4 years at this point in time, you know, the sad part is he's given us a lot of great moments. But if we're going to sit there and we're going to look at all of the when push comes to shove moments of the Dennis Gates era, it seems like his teams do not bow their chests out and play and show clutch, right? Like, I mean, there's just guys who over the course of basketball history, you know, you want the ball in their hands in clutch moments. And I don't know if Mizzou's even ever had one of those guys with Dennis Gates. And it seems like these close and late, these tight and close games late, they wither, you know, and like you mentioned, maybe it's as simple as putting the ball in Mark Mitchell's hands and letting him do something. Jaden Stone, again, there's zero reason that for 15 minutes to end the game, he didn't take a shot. You know, they forced one to Jacob Cruz, who clearly was not Jacob Cruz today. He went 1 of 5 from 3. You know, again, he just wasn't. I mean, obviously they needed an outside shot at one point, but you know, so again, I feel like we're going to end up having a lot of conversations about Dennis Gates as we get down the stretch, because I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being, you know, Debbie Downer on this thing, but I look at this as, I mean, if this is a 500 SEC team, I'd be stunned. I still think at the end of the day, they're probably winning 6 games in the SEC this year. They'll put a couple of good ones together at home. This was a game you had to win if you were going to prove that you were for real. They've got Auburn coming to Columbia next week. Auburn dismantled Arkansas tonight. So I don't know, you know, that's just one of those games that, again, you sit there and say an NCAA tournament team wins this thing. So I guess I just got to toss it out to you, Rock. I mean, where do you think the program sits at this point in time? What are your thoughts on Dennis Gates, the way he coaches? Is he a viable long-term guy? I mean, if the belief is that this team should be a tournament team year in and year out, I don't know. I mean, because it looks like we're probably headed for not, which will be 2 out of 4 years. So I don't know. I mean, where do we go with this?
I mean, listen, you can't fault his ability as a recruiter.
Nope.
Like there's no doubt about that.
There's talent.
With what's coming in, you have to be excited. But I mean, as somebody who started with Mike Anderson in my kind of Mizzou life, you really watching basketball, started with Mike Anderson and had to go through both the good and bad years of Frank Haith, and then this entire run pass with Konzo. It's just, we've seen multiple coaches who don't seem to have a consistent ability to game plan their offense. And that is an annoying thing to keep having to deal with, is just not having a consistent half-court plan. And as soon as Haith lost the veterans like English, they lost that plan, and Konzo never had one going back to coaching Jaylen Brown back at Cal. There was not a lot of half-court offensive plans, and it doesn't seem like the Tigers really have much of that anyway. So that part will always annoy me. But at the same time, when you can recruit and bring guys like Mark Mitchell into this system, and then he can produce games like tonight where he almost has a 20-point triple-double. If it goes to overtime and a couple things go their way, he probably racks up a triple-double in tonight's game at some point. Like when you have those kind of players, when you have a defensive scheme that at times really does highlight guys like Ant Robinson, puts Jaden Stone in some really good spots to be a pest defensively, you can win a lot of games. When you have a lot of talent, you can win a lot of games. They have to take a step forward. He's got to figure out the half-court offensive coaching, hire an offensive coordinator or something. But when you have the kind of talent that he's going to add, you have to utilize it correctly. And you need to avoid games like tonight where, despite clearly having the talent to win this game, you didn't utilize it correctly.
Let me ask you this. This conversation evolves and is changing based on the landscape of college basketball. But my question to you is, yes, I would 100% say that 4 years ago, we could see that Dennis Gates' ability to acquire talent was going to be something that would be sort of his bailiwick, the thing that really, really drives. At this point in time,
yeah, it wasn't like FSU was like carving teams up in the half court. They were everybody was 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, and they just out athletic you.
Yep. But my question to you is this: in the current era of college sports, does it matter if a guy's a recruiter? Because it seems like at the end of the day, the money is what's going to determine whether a guy comes or not. And and I bring this up because, okay, so Jason Crow is coming in next year, who is probably the highest ranked recruit Mizzou has had since, I guess, Michael Porter, but that didn't really work out as well for the Tigers as would have liked. But I'll look at that and say that I think the Jason Crow thing is a Tim Fuller deal, right? The new GM of Mizzou basketball. That's where the relationship is. And clearly Mizzou offered him money that he did not get offered other places. So again, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, do you go and do you find a guy who is just who's just an X's and O's rat? I mean, just one of these guys who coaches ball, but maybe is not the guy who goes and can tell everybody what they want to hear. Because it feels like at this point in time, the message selling, the John Calipari's of the world, they're not as important as the money that bankrolls them. And so I don't know, and again, I feel like I agree with everything you said about Dennis Gates, his inability to coach offense in the half court. Truthfully, I think their defensive system is silly. The nonstop positionless basketball, all it does is lead to bad positions for rebounding and mismatches that other teams can exploit. So again, I don't know that Dennis Gates is doing a ton from the X's and O's standpoint that is moving any of this forward. So my question is, if this just comes down to whether Mizzou can obtain enough NIL money to bring in high level talent, do we need a guy who's a recruiter more than you need somebody who just coaches the hell out of basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the thought process. There's no doubt about that. I guess the conversation then when we did, I guess let's not call it recruiting, but is the natural charisma of being a good recruiter, is that how often is that directly transferable to the natural charisma of being a salesman and selling your program to the boosters who are going to give you the cash to then go be a good recruiter, essentially, to your point. And are those similar skill sets? I would argue that I'm sure for a lot of people, they probably are. There's probably a lot of guys out there who are quote unquote recruiters who can also talk up and make the salesman part. I also think, and I think in college football, you're seeing this, the other thing. The other part of being a good recruiter is I do actually think that Dennis Gates is a good talent evaluator. And that's the other part about recruiting is you have to pick the guys out there. Like, I think he is a good basketball mind in that when he sees a player's skill set, he says, okay, this is how I'm going to utilize that skill set. Here's the best way to utilize the skill set. Here's something that you do 12% of the time that if we had you do 28% of the time of your possessions, it's going to make you a better rebounder, or a better scorer, or a better passer, or a better defender, what have you. I think he's got those kind of X's and O's things with him as a developer, as a recruiter, as kind of the big picture. I think his issue is more the batten down the X's and O's play by play in a half-court offense when somebody else is scheming, a switch concept against you that takes away any advantage that you naturally have for your athletes, that you're saying, okay, I'm going to have this advantage because of Mark Mitchell. But then the other coach is thinking, I need to take away this advantage from Mark Mitchell. I don't know how often the third aspect of that, which is the chess piece of Dennis Gates then moving Mark Mitchell to something else, I don't know how often that is happening, which is then causing issues in the half court. But I do believe he's a very good talent evaluator, and that overall, when he's building the team, I think he knows what will make these players better players individually. I think sometimes the execution and obviously the half-court execution is problematic.
He is Matthew Rocchio. I'm Chris Pelican. This is the Mizzou Central Postgame Show, and it is brought to you in part by the Legal Buddy app. Life happens fast. 1 minute you're driving home, the next flashing lights are in the rear view. When trouble knocks, answer with confidence. With the Legal Buddy app, you can connect to a local attorney in seconds, whether it's a DWI, car accident, criminal charge, or traffic ticket. Download the Legal Buddy app today at legalbuddyapp.com. Register and use the code LEGAL to enter for a chance to win a $250 Amazon gift card. Always on your side. That is the Legal Buddy app. Tigers lose 76-69 today in Oxford, Ohio. They fall to 2-1 in SEC play. Next up is the Auburn Tigers on Wednesday in Columbia. And Rock, I mean, we've been a little bit negative so far for the first 17 minutes, which I think is warranted. In the interest of equal time, things that you saw today that maybe stood out that you were impressed by. I know you mentioned Mitchell's play and
the efficiency.
Anything else that jumped out to you about what maybe this team can build off of?
I mean, for me, it's the efficiency of the offense for the most part. I mean, you look at those three players, Mitchell, Stone, and Phillips, and they scored of the 69 points. They scored for you, if I do quick math, 48 of your 69 points, and they did all that while missing 5 shots from the field and taking 20 something. So, I mean, that's an insanely efficient run from Stone, Mitchell, and Phillips. But for me, I just, this team has such a ceiling of athleticism when it comes to the defense and the transition offense. They had 3 steals and 5 blocks, I think, at the 12-minute mark of the second half. And they finished with 3 steals and 5 blocks. If they keep playing that up throughout the rest of the game, if you get 10 stocks, blocks plus steals in a game, that's dynamic. And if you have the athletes to get 10 stocks in a game, usually you have the athletes to turn those 10 stocks into points on the other end. And if you can get 15 or you can get 12 to 16 points off turnovers, you win a lot of basketball games. And so that's the one thing about the Tigers is that every time I watch them and every time I get pissed off about the offense for 10 minutes, I look up and I'm like, oh, well, they blocked 3 shots and had 2 steals in that run. That's what the athleticism gets you. So to your point, they are at times out of position on defense. But because of that switching, because of that always positionless basketball, I think it always puts them in position to have weak side help, and it almost always has guys who are in passing lanes that the opponent doesn't always expect them in. That's why I think we see a pretty good amount of blocks and steals in a lot of these games for the Tigers. If they can keep doing that against SEC competition, that feeds into a transition game. They don't have to get into the half court as much. But again, they have to have a game where they actually keep doing it for all 40 minutes. They can't have a game where they defend and force turnovers for 35 minutes and then go quiet for the last 5 to 10 minutes. And that's what happened tonight. And that's why what should have been a 2 or 4 point win turned into an 8-point loss, 7-point loss. I can't do math.
And I would even tell you that, again, you say they can't give it up for 5 minutes. I think this has been the problem with this team is that their defensive, Kareem and I talked about this a lot early in the season where you knew last year's team basically fed all of their energy or got all of their energy off of the shooting of Tamar Bates and Caleb Grill. And that, that was what infused life into this team. They don't have those kind of shooters this year with the exception of Jacob Cruz, who obviously wasn't great this year. No. So we had sort of posited that we thought that the defense was going to have to be the thing that spurred this team, right? Like Stocks, great statistic. Anthony Robinson is still a guy who goes out there and gives you a very, very good defensive effort night in and night out. The rub in my mind is that we don't see 35 out of 40 minutes of good defense. We see 25 out of 40 minutes, and it seems like at some point in time, that's what's going to have to be the thing that changes if this team has any March aspirations. You can't sit here and say that they don't have any shot at this point in time, far too early in the season. But again, it seems like they're going to have to be, I don't know, they're probably going to have to be a 10-win team in the SEC, right? To even get a sniff at March Madness at this point in time. One other thing to point out as well, you talk about, and again, the point guard situation is so interesting because I think Anthony Robinson he's a Swiss Army knife, right? If you look at the stats, he always is 4 or 5 columns deep with decent stats, right? He didn't have a huge game today, but for the most part, he's usually good for 10 points. He's good for 5 boards and 5 assists and 3 steals. He just fills up the stat sheet like that. But tonight, 13 turnovers to Ole Miss 7. And if we're sitting here talking about a game that was very close until the final minute of the game, you look at the free throw shooting, you look at the turnovers, and it just goes, this is it. And at some point in time, it is just an issue of sloppiness. And I don't know what Dennis Gates has to do. I don't know if he's not a yeller. We know that. That's fine. But I just don't know that we can see a team that is 16 games in their season all of a sudden develop consistency defensively, consistency in what they're doing from just a pure consistency and offensive standpoint.
No, this turnover thing's fascinating. This didn't jump out to me until just now, but their biggest turnover games this year have been against Southeast Missouri State, South Dakota, Cleveland State, Bethune-Cookman, and now a very, very average Ole Miss team. The fact that they're just putting it on the floor against the worst parts of a pretty bad schedule overall. They turned the ball over only 11 times and 10 times against Notre Dame and Kansas. Both of those are away games against obviously better competition than what they just faced tonight. That's the fact that they trip up just over their own 2 feet against some of the worst parts of their schedule, including one of the worst parts of their conference schedule, a game they should have won. It's just it's frustrating. You look at the free throws. I was looking at the 3-point shooting, by the way. This point last year, it was their 7th game with double-digit 3 points made. They have 4 this year. The first 3 conference games last year, they made 30 3-pointers. This year, they have made 20 on a much, much lower percentage. So, yeah, it's just there's no killer aspect of this team unless they're playing that 40 minutes of full defense, which they just don't do.
They don't do. And I don't know if they're going to have that in them this year. That's the rub. This is the Mizzou Central Postgame Show. It is brought to you by our business banking partners at Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us since day one as a trusted partner. Business is not just about numbers. It's about relationships. With Home Bank, those relationships make all the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our team at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. Home Bank, member FDIC, more than a bank. They are your business partner. And Rock, they do bring us the money moment of the game. I'll start off with you, my friend. Is there a money moment of the game that stood out to you?
Yeah, because it bothered me so much. And I texted you about this moment in the game because this really could have maybe forced some momentum kind of to Missouri, but unfortunately it doesn't. And that was when Mark Mitchell had his incredible dunk. What a dunk
Phillips.
he had.
Phillips.
Oh, sorry. Not Mark Mitchell. My apologies. Sean Phillips. My apologies. Sean Phillips with an incredible dunk. And the problem was he put the Tigers up 55-53, and he got an and one. Here we go. 3-point lead for the Tigers. This could be it. You get some momentum going the other way. But he talks a little bit too much shit, and he gets the technical foul the other way. And they make only one of those free throws, but nonetheless, what should have been or could have been a 3-point play turns out to just be a 1-point play because Sean Phillips also misses his free throw. So instead of being able to be up by 3 points, the Tigers still are only up by 1 point, and then eventually things really started to go their way from that point. My money moment of the game, Sean Phillips, just with an incredible dunk, one of the best dunks you will ever see, followed by one of the stupidest fouls I've ever seen a basketball player take in D1.
Just completely and totally unnecessary. Again, I agree with you. That was a huge moment. I would sit here and say, and this is what I pull my hair out about every single game, is the fact that this team, from just a pure size standpoint, is usually going to be superior, and they struggle to get rebounds at really important times. And late in the game, they have a great defensive possession to stop Ole Miss when it's a one-possession game. They force a bad shot and cannot clean up a rebound that is that Ole Miss gets and then converts. And next thing you know, it's a 4-point game. And at that point, it's just, you're going, I mean, you got to get a board when you need to get a board. And this factors in my mind to some of the toughness stuff, right? Like, I mean, and again, hey, sometimes the ball is going to bounce a certain way and that's going to happen, but man, oh man, it seems like the good teams are the ones who clean those up. I mean, again, like I said, give them credit. There was a great defensive possession down the stretch, and then you cannot clean up the offense, the rebound, and you give them new life and they jump on it. So again, just moments like that for me, that was in particular, the one that stood out, but that was the money moment of the game, brought to you by Home Bank, the team behind our team at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. Tigers lose again by a final score of 76-69 in Oxford. They fall to 12-4 on the season, 2-1 in SEC play. Next up is the Auburn Tigers with Stephen Pearl in his coaching debut, the son of Bruce Pearl. I didn't see a final score on that one today, but they ran a very good Arkansas squad out of the building down in Auburn today. So they will be coming in hot. You know what you're going to see from a Bruce Pearl team or a Stephen Pearl team at this point in time, Rock. They're going to push the ball. They're going to go up and down the floor. They're going to try to, transition threes, that sort of thing. You and I have spent the last 25 minutes basically talking about how we don't feel great about this group. This is a really big game for them, isn't it? I mean, again, if they want to change the narrative, this is the kind of win that again, and I know Auburn is not the same Auburn team they were the last couple of years, but they got guys, and this is the kind of game that I think is, you can't say must win, but I mean, truth be told, from Mizzou, there's they have to win. They've got to win a heck of a lot more than they don't moving forward in this point if they have any interest in playing in March. And so I don't know your thoughts on this Auburn game and how important this thing is on Wednesday.
Really quickly, let's get to our chat here from Rockstar Journey. This team is all over the place. Losses to Notre Dame and now Ole Miss. Yes, the win was great against Kentucky, but this loss sets Mizzou back. Ole Miss is an awful team.
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree with it. And again, and the truth is too, winning on the road in the SEC is tough. It doesn't matter, right? And again, having said that, this was one of the ones that you probably needed to get.
Yeah, and by the way, that Auburn Tigers, they closed out a 22-point lacking of the 15th ranked Razorbacks. They got 30 points from Keyshawn Hall and just 14 shots from the field. Absolutely ridiculous when you can score more than double of the shots you take from the field. That is like the efficiency North Star. And that's maybe the one thing to look at if you're talking about the Auburn game is, I don't know if they can have back-to-back games where they shoot 57% from the floor, 45% from three. And also here, credit to this is kind of insane. I don't know if I've ever seen this. Auburn had 11 steals and Arkansas only had 11 turnovers. I don't think I've ever seen a team that only turned the ball over on straight up steals the entire game. That's insane. That tells me also that Arkansas was taking care of the ball and the Tigers defense was picking their pockets. So Mizzou's going to have to watch out. Something tells me we're going to see a 15 turnover game. If we have a little bit of a quieter game from the Auburn Tigers offensively, maybe the Tigers can force some of those misses, turn it into a transition game. But honestly, after watching that kind of game, after seeing that kind of defensive and offensive efficiency from Auburn, I'm a little worried about this one.
I'm worried about all of them, bud. There's no two ways about that. Tigers lose today 76-69. This is the Mizzou Central postgame show right here on STL Sports Central. And this program is brought to you in part by DraftKings, where the crown is yours, an official betting partner of the NFL. Make every playoff moment feel bigger. Rock, I don't know. Do you have any action on the games today on the playoff?
Well, I'm doing well right now. I have a couple different parlays. One of them had Christian Watson as a touchdown scorer, and that's the first one as the Packers have taken an early lead over the Bears. But let's go ahead and look towards Sunday. I've been feeling good about the Jaguars all weekend, but what I'm going to actually shift to is the money has shifted the line a little bit bigger. I saw a couple days ago, Eagles only had 3 points favored. It's now shifted to a 6-point favorite for the Eagles. Ooh. I don't think Trent Williams is going to be playing for the 49ers, and that's why. But I'm not really buying the Eagles as that good of a team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to buy another 1.5 points and I'm going to get myself plus 7.5 on the 49ers. If they lose this game, which they probably will because they do not win games without Trent Williams, their left tackle, I don't think it's going to be by a lot. They maybe only lose this one by 3, maybe a touchdown. That's why I'm buying the extra 1.5, but I'm going to go 49ers after I buy a 1.5 plus 7.5.
You heard it right here, folks. And I will say the Rams won today, which just sort of ruins my day. So that's I'm just still a butthurt St. Louis Rams fan from
I'm with you on that one.
Only been 11 years. I guess I got to get over that at some point in time. Anyway, DraftKings does have your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets. If your bet wins, in partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Mizzou drops their first SEC game today by a final score of 76-69 in Oxford to Ole Miss. They fall to 2-1 on the season, 12-4 overall. Next up is Auburn on Wednesday. And Rock, maybe a few closing thoughts on what we saw today. Some good things masked in an overall bad performance by the Tigers and stuff. And obviously an effort that we know is not going to suffice for the course of the rest of the SEC schedule.
Dennis Gates is figuring out the 6-man rotation, how to work around it. At some point, the Tigers are going to have to figure out what to do when people actually get in foul trouble. You know, is Boateng the only guy that they're consistently able to go to? What is the out if they have to go to a 7th or 8th person deep for more than 2 or 3 minutes, to your point, when we opened up this whole thing. But I think the overall takeaway is the talent's there. Just you have to continue to optimize it. Again, it's the off-season optimization of talent. I'll buy into it with this coaching staff for now. But the in-game, the week-to-week, the game-to-game optimization of this team's talent, that's the issue right now. They got to clean up the game overall. You can't have stupid fouls like Phillips had on his big dunk. You can't have moments where your best players do not touch the ball and do not affect the game both offensively and defensively. You have the talent, optimize it. And if you do that, you're a tournament team. And I feel like that's going to be our overall takeaway for a lot of Dennis Gates games, as long as he's the head coach of the Missouri Tigers.
I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the truth is this team is a veteran team. They are old,
yes.
So these are the things. This is where they should be better than other teams. They should be better late. They should be better in close. And so again, that's the disappointing and truthfully the somewhat scary part of the entire equation. But again, like you said, we're going to ride with Dennis Gates. And again, I don't know what scenario things don't end well for him this year and that he does not come back next year. He's locked in with this team for a while. And again, I'm right there with you on all this stuff. I mean, they just have to be more consistent defensively and utilize the weapons, man. I mean, it seems as simple as can be.
And honestly, they have to figure it. Like if the 5-man unit late in games is Mitchell, Robinson, Cruz, Stone, and Pierce, they have to figure out if that can be defensively solid, because clearly in a close game, Sean Phillips Jr. is not going to be on the floor because he'll be fouled and it'll erase your chances to score points, close a deficit or add to a lead. So is that 5-man unit good enough to close games? That's also going to be something they're going to have to answer, because the X's and O's of late game Mizzou possessions has been decided for them at this point.
That's it. The book is out on old Sean Phillips.
Yep.
So anyway, well, Rock, I greatly appreciate your time, my friend. I think this was a good one. Obviously, we didn't talk about a fun one, but end of the day, I always have a good time when we chew it up, my friend. So
appreciate it.
Matthew Rocchio. I'm Chris Pelican. The Tigers lose 76-69. We will be back on Wednesday as they take on Auburn. This has been the Mizzou Central Postgame Show right here on STL Sports Central. See you on Wednesday.